My name is Alyssa Carter, and if you met me today, you'd probably think I've always been confident, successful, and grounded. But the truth is, everything I've built came from one moment, one brutal betrayal that flipped my world upside down and forced me to become someone entirely different. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a quiet suburb where dreams were often spoken of more than pursued. My father was a mechanic, and my mom worked nights as a nurse. I wasn't handed much, but I had ambition, and I had someone I believed would always have my back. His name was Landon Pierce. Landon and I met in junior high. He was the first boy who ever made me laugh so hard I snorted in public. He had this way of making everything seem possible. Over time, we became inseparable. Not romantically, but something deeper, or so I thought. He was the kind of friend I told everything to, my dreams of going to NYU for film, my fears about never escaping small-town life, even the things I never admitted to myself. He made me believe I wasn't crazy for wanting more. By college, we both got into NYU, and even decided to share a cramped apartment in Brooklyn. Life was chaotic, but thrilling. I was finally where I wanted to be, and Landon was right there with me. We used to sit on our tiny fire escape, sipping bad coffee and planning our futures like nothing could stop us. But even then, there were signs. He'd get strangely competitive when I landed an internship first. He'd brush off my short films with a tight smile and vague praise. He always had an excuse when I asked him to help on my projects. But I ignored all of it. Because that's what you do when someone's your best friend, right? You give them grace. You explain things away.
You assume the best.
Then one night, during a party hosted by one of our professors, something happened that I couldn't unsee. Landon had been chatting with Professor Gaines, a notoriously hard-to-impress mentor who held keys to elite industry connections. I approached them with a smile, holding 2 glasses of wine, ready to join the conversation. But as I got closer, I froze. Landon was talking about my latest short film, the one I'd spent weeks perfecting for the Young Creators Showcase. But he wasn't praising it. He was tearing it apart. "She just got lucky with that piece," he said casually. "She used my camera setup and half my script notes. Honestly, she wouldn't have pulled it off without my help." My stomach dropped. I stepped back before they could see me, heart pounding. I stood against the hallway wall, trying to steady my breath. Was I overreacting? Mishearing? I didn't say anything that night. I just went home early pretending I had a headache. For days, I tried to forget it. Maybe it came out wrong. Maybe he was just nervous and trying to sound relevant. But then I noticed something else. A USB drive with my unreleased film project went missing from my desk. And days later, I overheard him bragging in a phone call to someone named Jeff about a killer pitch he was about to present to a production studio. It all started sounding familiar. Too familiar. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I reminded myself we'd been through too much for me to start doubting him over petty jealousy. But the seed was planted. Something was shifting. I could feel it. Still, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That's what made it worse. The more I tried to rationalize it, the more I ignored my instincts. Then came the night of the Young Creators Showcase. I'd been shortlisted. My name was printed in the program. My stomach fluttered with anticipation as I arrived at the venue. And then I saw it. On the screen, before mine played, a short film by Landon Pierce. It was eerily similar to the project I had submitted, a different title, different cast, but the core storyline?
Mine.
Shot for shot. Idea for idea. Even one of my voiceover monologues had been reworded and reused. I sat there frozen, my palms slick with sweat, my jaw locked in horror. A couple people in the row ahead of me whispered, "Didn't Alyssa do something like that last year?" I wanted to disappear. My own project still played afterward. But the damage had been done. When I turned to look at Landon, sitting rows away from me, he simply smiled and gave me a slow nod, as if daring me to say something. I didn't clap. I didn't breathe. That night, walking home alone in the bitter November wind, I realized something had died inside me. Our friendship, my trust, and the old version of me, the girl who gave people the benefit of the doubt, was gone too. But something else had awakened. A fire. I wasn't going to just let this go. He'd taken what was mine. He'd stolen from me under the mask of friendship. And now he had to pay. I tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe the voice on the other end of that phone call was mistaken. Or maybe I was just paranoid. But once suspicion creeps in, it doesn't just leave quietly. It makes a home in your head. The first real clue came 2 days after that unexpected call. I was sitting in my favorite cafe, sipping burnt coffee, and reviewing designs for a pitch I'd been preparing for weeks. The competition was intense. Just a few of us had been shortlisted for an international startup showcase. The winner would get the kind of funding most entrepreneurs only dream about. It had been my goal since I left my job to build my own thing, and I had worked for it relentlessly. As I tapped through the slide deck, I noticed something odd, an Instagram story. It was from Jared, my best friend, or at least he used to be. The caption said, "Big moves coming soon. I was grateful for the chance of a lifetime."
I wanted to be happy for him. Truly.
We'd celebrated each other's milestones for years, but something about the timing felt off. Jared had been quiet for weeks, ever since I told him I made it to the final round of the pitch competition. He hadn't asked me a single thing about it since. Not even a good luck. My gut twisted again. I remembered a night from weeks ago. We were at my apartment, sipping whiskey and brainstorming. I had been excited, maybe a little drunk, and I had shared everything: the product roadmap, the investor deck, the prototype screenshots. At the time, it didn't feel risky. It felt like letting my best friend in on my dream. He had even offered a few suggestions that I jotted down. Now, those suggestions were echoing in my mind. I opened his website on a whim. It had been dormant for months. But today, there was something new. A teaser banner. Launching soon. A smarter way to manage freelancers. My heart dropped. That was my tagline. I clicked the banner, and it redirected to a locked page, but the URL path had the word Streamlink, which had been my internal project name. Something I had never spoken of publicly. Only Jared knew it. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling over my keyboard. Was it possible? Could he really be doing this? That evening, I invited Jared out for drinks. I needed to know more, and I wasn't going to get answers over text. He responded within seconds, unusually enthusiastic. "Let's do it, man. Been a while." We met at a rooftop bar downtown. The kind of place with overpriced cocktails and dim lighting that made everything feel more dramatic than it needed to be. He hugged me like nothing had changed. Smiled like he hadn't stabbed me in the back. "So, what's new with you?" I asked, swirling the condensation around my glass. He shrugged, sipping his drink. "Not much. Just working on a few side hustles." "Anything exciting?"
He paused.
"Maybe. But you know how it is. Can't say much until it's ready." That vague, deflective tone. It was his tell. I had heard it before, back when he was hiding a breakup, and again when he got laid off and didn't tell me for weeks. It was the sound of omission, not truth. The conversation drifted to safe topics: sports, old memories, mutual friends. But the undercurrent was thick with tension. I kept nodding, pretending to laugh, pretending not to notice how he kept checking his phone. Probably for updates on the thing he stole from me. The next morning, I called Danielle, our mutual friend and a former UI designer who had helped me early in the project. She had gone quiet too, and I wanted to believe it was coincidence. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Have you been in touch with Jared lately?" There was a pause on the other end. "Too long." Yeah, a bit." I could hear the discomfort in her voice. "Danielle," I said, gently but firmly. "Did he ask you to work on something? Something related to freelance platforms?" Another pause. "Look, I didn't know it was your idea. He said he was working on something new and needed help. I just did some mock-ups for him. That's all." I felt the air leave my lungs. My worst fear was real. Jared hadn't just taken inspiration. He had lifted the idea. Word for word.
Design for design.
"He's submitting to the same showcase, isn't he?" I asked, my voice quieter now. Danielle didn't answer. That was answer enough. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I had trusted him with everything. And he didn't just betray that trust, he turned it into leverage. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him across the table, smiling, pretending. I heard his voice in my head. You're too nice. That's why I'd never survive in business.
He used to joke about that.
I never realized how serious he was. The paranoia grew stronger with every passing hour. I started to question everything. Every conversation we'd had, every moment I thought was genuine. Had he always seen me as competition? I went through my messages trying to piece together the timeline. There it was days after I sent him my final pitch deck, he had gone silent. A week later, his own platform was suddenly in progress. I decided to test him. I created a new email using a fake name and pretended to be an investor interested in his upcoming product. I wanted to see how far he'd go, how much of my work he'd present as his own. Within a day, he responded. Attached to the email was a slick PDF pitch. It was a modified version of my deck. Same structure, same visual language, even the same metrics and use case scenarios I had developed. He had only changed the name and logo. My chest burned with a mix of fury and disbelief. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theft. Strategic, intentional, ruthless. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but not yet. I had a better plan. I didn't tell anyone what I discovered. Not yet. Instead, I went quiet, like a predator watching its prey. But I started preparing. I rebranded everything overnight. Changed the name, the design, the messaging. I built a tighter, stronger pitch. I even reached out to a few journalists under embargo, feeding them my story just in case things got ugly. The difference now? I wasn't working to impress anyone. I was working to destroy him. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. It wasn't dramatic at first, no explosions, no loud arguments. Just silence. A heavy, thunderous silence that followed a single email I wasn't supposed to see. It was a Thursday evening. I had stayed late at the co-working space, polishing the pitch deck we were supposed to present at the tech summit that weekend. The startup we had been building together for 2 years was finally getting noticed. Investors were starting to reach out. Our idea, an AI-powered platform that streamlined freelance hiring, had gone from concept to reality. And we were gaining momentum. I had gone to grab coffee when I saw his laptop still open on the table. Normally, Adrian never left his laptop unlocked. He was paranoid about security. But that day, for whatever reason, he had. I wasn't snooping. I just leaned over to close the lid when something caught my eye. An email thread. The subject line said, "Next steps for our solo launch. NDA attached." I froze. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I knew I shouldn't look. But I also knew that if I walked away, I'd never stop wondering. So I clicked. It was a long chain of messages between Adrian and a VC firm we had both been trying to impress, Redridge Capital. They were one of the biggest names in tech funding. The same firm that had invited both of us to present the product. But the email wasn't addressed to both of us. Just Adrian. Looking forward to your solo presentation at TechSpark. Thanks for confirming you'll keep the IP direction confidential for now. We're excited about your individual vision. Solo presentation. Individual vision. My heart dropped. I scrolled down furiously. Paragraph after paragraph of strategic plans that excluded me entirely. The worst part? He was planning to present the idea as his own, just his own. He had already filed a provisional patent behind my back. He had built a separate demo on his private GitHub. He even had a domain registered under a new brand name, one I'd never heard before but instantly recognized as a polished, market-ready rebranding of our project. And the kicker? He had scheduled a conflict meeting with HR for the Monday after the conference, claiming we had creative differences and requesting formal separation of roles. He was going to blindside me after the pitch. After he stole our opportunity, I sat there staring at the screen, every part of my body numb. My thoughts raced. The taste of betrayal was bitter in my mouth. I wanted to confront him right then and there. But something inside me, something cold and unfamiliar, told me not to.
Not yet.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced in my apartment, replaying every moment from the past 6 months. Every time Adrian insisted on taking certain calls privately. Every time he downplayed my contributions in meetings. Every time he subtly took credit for my designs or ideas. I'd ignored the signs. I had wanted to believe he was still the same friend who had backed me in college, the same guy I'd stayed up all night brainstorming with, the same person I trusted with my dreams. But he wasn't. He had changed. Or maybe he was just better at hiding it before. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I was going to outplay him. If Adrian thought he could erase me from the company we built, then he didn't know me at all. I started working in silence. While he prepped for his big betrayal, I made phone calls of my own. I pulled together a revised demo, one that not only showcased our product's full potential but also included features he didn't even know I had developed. Back when we were in early stages, I had worked on an experimental feature, an advanced recommendation algorithm that adapted in real time based on freelancer behavior and client preferences. I had shelved it due to resource constraints, but the code was still there. Mine alone. I updated the demo, rebranded the visual identity, and created a sleek presentation deck with a name I had always preferred but he had rejected. Hierite. Then I reached out to someone Adrian didn't know I still kept in touch with, Mira, an executive assistant at Redridge who had once been my intern during a summer program years ago. Mira had always liked my ideas. She remembered me as humble and thorough, very different from how she described Adrian when she met him in their office. He talks a lot, she said over the phone, but most of it's style over substance. Your idea felt stronger when you two pitched it together. Why did you guys split up? We didn't, I replied. He just doesn't know I know. She paused. You should probably come in. Quietly. So I did. 2 days before TechSpark, I walked into Redridge's offices with my own pitch, fully documented, timestamp contributions, and a technical breakdown that made it impossible to deny who had built what. They listened. They asked questions. And then they told me something that made my skin crawl. We were never going to give him the full deal, one of the partners said. We were hoping he'd bring you in. But since you came first on record, this changes things. That night, Redridge formally rescinded Adrian's solo pitch slot and assigned it to me. But I wasn't done yet. At TechSpark, I kept things professional. I gave the presentation alone, clean, polished, focused. The crowd loved it. The feedback was overwhelming. I could see heads turning, hands shooting up with questions, people genuinely excited. Adrian was in the crowd. I didn't look at him. Not once. After the pitch, while I was surrounded by investors and industry reps, he stormed up to me. You snake, he hissed under his breath. I turned to him calmly, my voice low. You filed a patent on something I co-built. You tried to erase me from my own work. You lied to our investors. You betrayed a friend. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you've done. No, I said. You have no idea what you lost. He left before the after-party. I stayed until the last light went out. 2 weeks later, he emailed me. Said he was willing to talk. I ignored it. 3 months later, Redridge offered to acquire Adrian's small stake in the original business. They bought him out.
Cheaply.
And 6 months after that, he applied for a job at one of our partner companies, where I was already consulting. Guess who reviewed his application?
Yeah, me.
And guess who rejected it? Also me. Not out of spite, but because I knew someone better for the role. Someone who understood loyalty. Adrian may have been clever, but I had something he never valued: integrity, patience, and the memory of every single time he underestimated me. Now, he works for a company that licenses my software. He doesn't know I built the tools he uses every day. And honestly, I hope he never does. Because silence is a better revenge than any speech I could have given. And sometimes, the sweetest justice isn't making them watch you succeed. It's watching them slowly realize they helped build your empire, only to be locked out of its gates forever. I stood at the edge of the rooftop bar, watching the city shimmer beneath a golden dusk. The same city where he and I had once shared dreams over dollar pizza and wild ambition. Now, the skyline stretched like a battleground, cold, towering, and waiting for what would come next. He walked in late as always, but this time he wasn't smug. He looked uneasy, like he knew something had shifted. He hadn't seen me since everything fell apart, since the day I disappeared from his life without explanation. Or so he thought. Didn't expect this invite, he said, offering a weak smile as he approached. Kind of surprised to hear from you, honestly. I turned to face him, my voice steady but devoid of warmth. You always liked surprises, didn't you? He gave a nervous laugh, but it died quickly in his throat. The silence between us stretched, brittle and sharp. I guess I owe you an explanation, he said, looking down. About the investor deal and everything after. You don't owe me an explanation, I said quietly. You owe me the truth. His jaw tightened.
Okay, fine.
I saw the opportunity and I took it. You weren't moving fast enough, and I
didn't think you'd get it done.
I took a slow breath, letting that confession land. So, you sent the pitch deck to Carter behind my back. Claimed the product as your own.
He didn't deny it.
Just stood there, eyes cast downward, hands clenched. I was desperate, he muttered. You don't know what it's like, watching time run out and having nothing to show. I laughed bitterly. Funny. I know exactly what that feels like. I lived it for months because of you. He stepped closer. But we were partners. You could have said something. Instead, you disappeared.
You ghosted me.
I didn't ghost you, I snapped. I rebuilt in silence. I rebuilt everything you broke. His expression flickered with something close to shame, but it passed quickly. So what now? You brought me here to make me feel bad. No, I said, stepping forward, voice low. I brought you here because I wanted to look you in the eye when I told you exactly what you lost. He blinked.
What?
I handed him the embossed card, his name written in bold letters under the title Associate Product Manager. Below it, my company's logo, unmistakable and shining. What is this? He asked, brows furrowing. You applied for a job at my company last week, I said. Your resume came across my desk yesterday. His face drained of color. And I approved the hire. I continued. Because I wanted you to know exactly what it feels like to chase something that was never meant to be yours. You, he choked. You're the CEO? I built the platform, I said. Took what we dreamed of and made it real. You tried to cut me out. Now I own the building you're trying to get into. He stood frozen, jaw clenched, fists shaking at his sides. You'll report to my team, I added. And every time you clock in, I hope you remember the price of betrayal. You're punishing me, he said bitterly. You planned this whole thing just to get even. No, I replied. I'm offering you a second chance, one you never gave me. His face contorted with pride, pain, and something almost like regret. Why would you hire me after everything I did? Because I know talent when I see it, I said. Even when it stabs me in the back. He stared at me, speechless, lost in a war of shame and ego.
But I wasn't finished. One more thing, I said.
That investor? Carter? He reached out last month. Said he finally understood who the real brains were. What did you say? He asked softly. I told him I don't work with thieves. The words hit him like a blow. For a second, I saw the mask drop, the arrogance, the bravado, all crumble. What remained was just a boy who once chased dreams with me, now choking on the ashes of his own betrayal. I'll see you Monday, I said, turning away. And as I walked back toward the elevator, I didn't look back. Not even once. Because this wasn't revenge. It was justice. And justice had finally been served. I had imagined revenge would feel like fireworks, loud, explosive, burning the past to ash. But it was quieter than I thought. More surgical, like severing a limb to save your own life. After I pulled the strings that made Nathan lose the deal, there was silence. Not a call, not a text. The industry buzzed, sure. Whispers circulated about how his pitch got pulled last minute. How a bigger player had suddenly taken interest in the project, and Nathan was politely let go. They didn't know the bigger player was me. They didn't know that I had walked into that room with the same pitch, tweaked, elevated, bulletproof. What they really didn't know was that the original idea, the beating heart of it, was mine from the start. Nathan had taken everything from me in that betrayal, my trust, my confidence, even months of work we built together.
But now?
He had nothing. Still, I wasn't celebrating.
Not really.
In the days that followed, I found myself checking his social media. Old habit. I half expected him to post some bitter quote or a cryptic "people change" status. But there was nothing. He'd gone dark. One evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't pick up. Then it rang again. Same number. I answered with a cautious "hello?" Silence. Then a breath. Then, "You really did it, Nathan." His voice didn't carry the smug confidence it once did. It was hollow.
Defeated.
"I don't know how," he continued, "but I know it was you. No one else knew the ins and outs of that pitch. You were the only one who could have made them drop me like that." I didn't say anything at first. Just listened. "I deserved it," he added, barely audible. "I screwed you over, and I told myself you were too soft to ever do anything back. Guess I was wrong." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You told them I wasn't ready, that I wasn't the kind of person investors could trust. You didn't just steal from me, Nathan. You buried me." Silence again. "You're right," he said finally. "I was jealous. Of your ideas. Your instinct. The way you walked into a room and made people listen. I always thought I was the smarter one. I didn't expect you to be the one people believed in. That scared me." I leaned back in my chair. The city lights blurred in the window beside me. "So you betrayed me because of your own insecurity?" I said. "Because I shine too bright standing next to you?" "Yeah," he admitted. "Exactly that. I didn't want to be in your shadow." There was something tragically honest in that. I didn't forgive him, but for a moment I understood him. "I'm not calling to ask for anything," he added quickly. "Just wanted you to know I got your message loud and clear." He paused, and then the final words came, soft as smoke. "I lost a business opportunity, sure. But I think what hurts more is losing the only person who ever actually believed in me." Then he hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the dark screen. The days turned into weeks. I expected to feel relief, satisfaction, something that marked my victory. And yes, there was vindication. The investors loved the revised pitch. The funding was secured. The project was officially underway. But the silence that followed Nathan's call stayed with me. There's a strange emptiness in revenge, especially when the person you defeated no longer fights back. I thought back to the early days, when we were both nobodies with big dreams. We worked from coffee shops, scribbled ideas on napkins, fueled by hope and hunger. Back then, he was my best friend, a brother. And somewhere along the line, competition crept in. Ego followed. Insecurity mutated into betrayal.
But now?
The very dream we once shared was mine alone. And I couldn't tell if that made me the winner or just the one left behind. A few days later, I received a message, anonymous. But the contents were unmistakable. A forwarded email from one of Nathan's former contacts. Attached was a digital voice memo Nathan had accidentally sent to a group chat he forgot to remove me from. His voice, raw and emotional, filled my ears.
He thinks he won. But I know things about him.
Things that could ruin him if I ever chose to speak. But maybe I won't. Maybe I'll let him live with what he did. Let him rise while always looking over his shoulder. It was venomous.
Cold.
I listened again, slower this time. The message wasn't just bitter. It was a warning. Suddenly, I wasn't just basking in victory anymore. I was watching my back. Did he know something? Was it a bluff? A manipulation? Or had I missed something? Some piece of myself I'd left exposed in the race to outmaneuver him? A chill crept down my spine. I checked the windows, locked the office, deleted old files, covered my tracks. Because what started as a friendship turned into betrayal, then into revenge. And now, it was war. But not the kind you fight with words or strategy. The kind that simmers in silence. The kind where every victory has a cost. And every secret can be weaponized. The final twist came weeks later. At an event hosted by the investment group, I was introduced to a new advisor they'd hired to support upcoming projects.
He's brilliant, they said.
Came from a competitive startup background. And when I turned around to shake his hand, it was Nathan, smiling, suited,
Scarred.
He leaned in and whispered, "Looks like we're working together again." Final shocking sentence. And in that moment I realized, taking away his opportunity didn't end the story, it only reset the game.